You're talking about Man of the Year song in the tour. How's the tour going? You just played last night, Highline Ballroom, man. How's it going?
It's amazing. Yeah. It's a little bit of sweet because we just finished our U.S. leg and we're about to go to Europe now. So yeah.
Well, you don't have to be too biased, but what was your favorite date? You know, what was the favorite experience as far as the cities in the U.S.?
Oh, it's so hard to say that, you know. I mean, New York is always so much fun. And yesterday we had a blast. Everybody was just screaming and just having a great time. So it's always great to play in New York. So.
And what's it like interacting with the fans finally? Because obviously you have this huge, you know, internet presence, and you're communicating them through social media, that sort of thing, and then seeing them react to the songs live. What does that feel like for you?
It's one of the craziest things ever, especially because I just released my very first EP ever, so now they have a body of work that they can listen to, and to go to my shows and actually hear them singing my songs is the craziest thing ever, you know, to be like, oh, I wrote this song in my room, and now you're singing it out loud to me. It's kind of crazy. So.
Let's talk about Elevated. I mean, how long have you been working on these songs? How long, like, what's the longest trajectory for one of them, and what's the one that came the quickest, would you say?
So the oldest one is probably Let You Go. I think that song is about 5 or 6 years old, actually.
I had some people asking about that, actually, the process behind that.
Yeah, I wrote that one, I mean, in the beginning when I first came to the States, and it was one of the sessions in the studio when we were working with an incredible writer. It's written for Beyonce and like crazy people, and we were writing this song, and it's like, oh my God, this song is incredible. And then so long like passed by since we wrote it, and it's crazy that it's just like one of the only ones that after all that time it still stood out after so long. So it's like when a song stands out after so long, you just know it's a great song. So I had to keep it for the EP for sure.
Did it change much, or did it evolve much over those years before you got into the studio to record it?
A little bit, especially because in the beginning the song was called Let It Go, and then many Let It Go songs came out. So we kind of had to make a decision.
One particular one that I feel like has been pretty popular.
Exactly. So we kind of had to make a decision and be like, okay, well, you know, there's a little oversaturation with this title, so we might have to just shape it a little bit. So.
Damn you, Idina. Did you have a song that came out the quickest, would you say?
The quickest, probably How Not to Love You. Because I was in the studio and we had this beat and it just felt great, and it was just one of those that I started writing it and it came out in like 20 minutes. And it surprised me because usually I take forever to write a song. And it was just one of those, I was like, it just feels good, and it's like, don't change it. That's it. So.
I mean, let's tell people a little bit about your story. I mean, you're originally from Spain, is that correct?
Correct.
When do you first remember interacting with music? When do you first remember hearing music that inspired you?
I always loved music. I remember maybe being 6 years old and being singing in the house, and my sister would just be like, shut up, you're so annoying. And like, I just loved doing it.
Little did she know.
And then just growing up, I loved singing, and then when I was about 14 years old, my mom had a guitar in the house. And then I grabbed it because I was just mesmerized by the instrument. And then I taught myself how to play it. And then those are like the early memories with music. And I've always felt a really strong connection with it.
I mean, were your parents musical? Did that get passed down? Or what were the inspirations that sort of you were basing yourself off of?
Not really. My parents are not musicians. My mom is a maid and my dad is a carpenter. And the inspiration just kind of came. I mean, we all love music in my house, and we always listen to music, and we sing as everybody does, I guess. But yeah, just like that strong connection, I just kept it through the years. And
were there a couple of records that you remember playing over and over again, or some key factors in that?
There wasn't a record for me. I was the weird kid that listened to English music without understanding what it meant, because I didn't know.
You didn't understand the words, yeah.
Exactly. But there was something different about American and UK music that the Spanish didn't quite have. And I grew up listening to a lot of top 40. So that was my obsession. I would be listening to top 40 and then be with the tape recorder, you know, and like right when the song that I love came in, it was just record. It was like the play and record at the same time. And then I would.
Wow, you're really taking it back right now, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it seems like crazy now. Like kids nowadays don't know about tapes.
Yeah, you're so old. You're so old.
I know, it's
Leroy,
like,
yeah.
it's not crazy because like I'm not that old, but just technology is scary.
Yeah. Is there a particular song you remember learning first, or a couple songs you learned first that you were listening to?
Yeah, there was actually my very first cover on YouTube. Technically, my first cover was "Breakaway" by Kelly Clarkson. I remember when she first came out from American Idol, and I just saw some videos of her on YouTube, and I was like, who is she? Her voice is crazy. And then she started singing, sounding in the radio. And then I remember that song. I was just like obsessed with it.
I mean, I think obviously there's a gap between playing at home and then wanting to put it on the internet and see how people react to it. I mean, what was that thing that inspired you to put it on YouTube, that sort of get the music out there?
When I first discovered YouTube, I mean, early back in the day, you know, I was on YouTube just kind of looking for music, and then I started finding people singing in their house and in their room, and I thought it was the coolest thing to find someone in the comfort of their room just singing a Beyonce song. And I was mesmerized by it. And then one day, I was curious because I always loved to sing. So I was like, I wonder what other people from all over the world think of my singing. So I grabbed this camera, obviously terrible quality. It was like a megapixel. And I started recording myself, and it was like super low lit. I was terrified by the fact that anybody in the world could see me.
I was gonna ask. I mean, did your family know you were on YouTube?
No,
did
they
your friends
didn't.
know you were on YouTube? You were
No.
just doing it on the DL. Okay.
Yes, I mean, nobody knew what YouTube. I mean, nobody. It's not nobody, but my parents didn't know what YouTube was at all. And I just started doing it. Yeah, kind of like in my room without them knowing, and yeah. It was interesting that they found out.
Yeah, and eventually they found out, obviously. I mean, do you remember the first responses that you started to get that sort of started to inspire you to do more of it, or
I mean, yeah,
you?
in the beginning, it wasn't nothing crazy. I mean, I started doing YouTube back in 2007, and the amount of views that I got, it was like minimal. I mean, like maybe 50 views top on one video, you know?
I'm sure they were like, you were excited, 50 people.
Oh, it was crazy. Like, I remember coming back from school, and I would get an email every time someone made a comment or subscribed to my channel. And like, I would come back from school and be like, oh, I have 3 emails now. I'm like, what? Someone subscribed to my channel? This is crazy. And I would go to their channel and be like, thank you so much. This means the world to me. I'm going to do videos just for you. Because it's like, you're amazing. And yeah, it just kind of started growing little by little. And like every day, you know, it would be 5 emails, then 10 emails, then 20. And just slowly started building up.
And what was it that brought you to the States, right? The Jim Jonsin, right? He reached out to you. I mean, how did he find you, and what was your reaction to someone just reaching out and saying, I'd love to work with you? And it's a big-time producer, you know?
Yeah. Well, I was in Spain doing my videos, and I had more than 50 views by then.
Okay, like how many were you say?
My top video by then was like 100,000. So still
not too shabby, not too shabby.
Yeah, it's still not in the millions or anything like that, but he reached out through YouTube, and I didn't see it in the beginning, and some of the fans started saying like, hey, there's this guy that's telling that he's got Grammys and he's worked with Beyonce and he wants to work with you. I was like,
sounds like a scam, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's no way this is true. But then I found the comments, and then actually he was emailing me because by the time I had an email there. And yeah, we got in touch, and then he was like, hey, I want you to come to Miami and come to the studio and just try it out for a week, you know? And I was like, okay. So I ended up...
The decision was that easy, obviously.
I mean, I went with my dad because I was 18 by the time, and going to the States by myself, it was really nerve-wracking. But it was one of those things that's like, if this is a real opportunity, I cannot let this go. So it was a chance that I had to take, pretty much. So.
And what was the experience walking into a professional studio for the first time, as someone who was just at home, you know, recording YouTube videos before?
That week was probably the most surreal week of my life. I landed, and I went to the studio right away, and the first person that I ran into was Shakira. Second day, I was hanging out in the studio with David Guetta and Pitbull.
Okay, are you just playing it cool at this point? Are you not saying hello?
Oh,
you have
listen,
to, like, come on.
I was freaking out. I was just kind of like... And my English was pretty bad at the time, too. So you can imagine they were talking and talking to me. I'm just like, just looking around and smiling. And the last day of that week, I sang for Kelly Rowland. And that week was just like, okay, well, this is what the music industry is. Well, I'll sign anything. And yeah, that was...
Doesn't usually go that well, I feel like, for most people. So that's a pretty good experience.
No, it was an incredible experience, yeah.
And, you know, when you decided to stay in the States and you know, move to California, that sort of thing, when did that come?
It came probably a couple months after the fact that I was in Miami, because then we kept in touch and we kept talking. And... yeah, I had to make the decision. I was going to the university in Spain, and then I talked to my producer and I was like, hey, you know, if I come to the States, I want to continue with my studies. So that's what I did. I came back and I went to college in Florida for a year and a half or 2 years. And then after that, I started working on my working visa and like record deals and blah, blah, blah. So.
I mean, so when you're doing the professional recorded videos and the songs, I mean, what were the first couple that you did and the reaction you started to get once you had a professional sort of behind it?
I mean, it was a great experience when the first video that I did was Little Dancer. And first professional video, it was just crazy, you know. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like, obviously, like, we're going to throw $1 million for your music video, no?
It wasn't like cars flipping over or anything
exactly,
like that.
Exactly, fire and glitter and crazy stuff. But it was really exciting times when I started working on original music, because it did feel, you know, I've been writing in the studio. That was the main focus when I first came to the States. More than being an artist was like, I need to write. And I need to get my English down and make sure that, you know, I got the English right and I can write and I can use that as an artist in my advantage and not just being an artist and take people's songs. So I spent a lot of time writing original songs. And then finally when one of them, you know, saw the light of day, it was just finally like, oh, okay, this is like, I'm starting to be an artist now. And it was kind of surreal.
What was releasing that? What was that experience like?
It was great. I mean, nerve-wracking as well, because being on YouTube for so long and doing covers, to break with that and be like, hey, I have an original song, and this is who I am as an artist, is kind of like, I hope people like it.
People were asking for it for a long time, though.
Yeah, which is amazing. And there's a lot of fans that are always like, hey, you know, where are your originals? We want to hear you. And I really appreciate that. But like I said, it was really nerve-wracking to have a whole fan base, you know, built on covers and be like, hey, well, this is me now. I hope you like it. Yeah.
But you put your own style onto your covers, though. I mean, that's the thing. It's like your own style was coming through. How did you pick the songs to cover? I mean, obviously the Adele one, and they have like 43 million views now. It's insane. It's crazy. I mean, how did you pick those songs?
I mean, I have to be a fan of the song. I mean, I'm a huge Adele fan. And,
who isn't? Absolutely. Favorite song, favorite Adele song?
Favorite Adele song, probably either When We Were Young or just throw it back to the first album, to Chasing Payments, or Hometown Glory. I can go through the whole discography.
Sing out the album, just sing it out.
Right. But to choose the song, I have to love the song first. And then obviously, if it makes sense for the channel as well and for my fans, yeah.
What's one in particular that maybe the fans, you know, requested or asked you for that you made happen?
One of them was Dear No One by Tori Kelly. That one was one of the first ones that they strongly wanted me to sing. And I didn't know who Tori Kelly was by the time. And then they got me into her. And then since then, I've been obsessed with her voice. And yeah, I did it. And then everybody loved it. And it did actually really well. So. Yeah.
And Despacito obviously came out. That was great. People love that one. I mean, tell me about, you know, finding collaborators. Obviously, Madeline Bailey, who you worked with recently a few times. But how do you find the collaborators?
Most of the time, I'm really shy and awkward when it comes to contacting people, because I feel like they would feel like, why is he like reaching out? And most of the time that it's happened is actually them reaching out to me. And that's the case with Madeline. She was actually the first one. I was like, hey, I want to do a song. I was like, okay. And we did Crazy by Gnarls Barkley. And then we linked up, and then we just kept doing them because, I mean, she's incredible. Yeah.
How did she message? Was it like Instagram, Twitter? Yeah, there we go.
Twitter.
Interesting.
Usually Twitter is the best platform for contacting people and collaborating and all that.
Who's another collaborator that you've worked with that you've really enjoyed and maybe you want to work with again?
I mean, I've worked with Kurt Schneider, which is huge in the YouTube world. Also, Will Gittins, which is a huge, I mean, amazing, incredible singer-songwriter, and his voice is crazy. God, who else have I collaborated with now? You're putting him in the spot. But yeah, usually, I mean, I want to say I'm like really selective with the people that I collab with.
Very choosy.
No, but I do love voices, and I mean Mario Jose, I've collabed with him, and he's actually direct support. He was direct support for the U.S. leg, And incredible voice from, I found him in LA through mutual friends. And yeah, I'm a sucker for good voices.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that first weekend where you interacted with those great names. I mean, have you had a couple other brushes with artists that you look up to, that you can collaborate with, hopefully, down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few collabs or met with other artists as well, like Becky G. I sang in the show with her. She's a sweetheart. I've been in the studio with J-Lo, which that was crazy.
That's got to be insane. She's a force.
Oh, yeah. It's so intimidating when you're in the studio, just kind of like, you're J-Lo. You've done some things, you know, like...
You've done some things, exactly. That could be your Wikipedia page. You've done
exactly. But it's so exciting to work with, you know, like artists in that level too. And it just makes you realize that at the same time, we're all doing the same thing and we're all doing it for the right reason, so...
Are there other artists out there that you want to collaborate with, hopefully? Is there like a wish list, a top wish list?
Oh, yes, I have a wish list.
Throw it out there, man. Throw it out.
Well, hey, Adele. No, but...
She's definitely watching.
Right? I hope so. Ryan Tedder. I love his voice. I love his songwriting. I mean, he's a huge inspiration for me. I mean, who else? Sam Smith. I don't know.
Yeah. Is there another song that's that people can get excited about you covering? Is that coming up soon again?
Well, right now, since we're on tour, it's a little hard to get songs out. I am working on original material for the web, so stay tuned for that. And as far as covers, I'm kind of like
focused on your own thing right now.
I'm on like full head on towards the tour right now. And
what's the one that people are requesting the most, though?
Which one was it? There was one that they were requesting. Oh, the Sia and Sane, the Dust Until Done, I think it's called.
Just give it to him right now, here.
I mean, to be honest, I would have to like,
close enough. That was good enough. That's all we'll ask for.
YouTube worth it right there. No.
That's all we're going to ask you for. Now you're going to Europe. That's got to be really exciting for you.
Yes.
Going to Spain, you know, seeing your family, your friends. I mean, what's that going to be like? I'm sure you're very excited.
I'm super excited to finally go home and see my parents. I haven't seen them almost in a year. So
it's got to be hard. Obviously, that's a lot of distance, and you're working on this tour.
I mean, since I moved to the States, it's really, really hard to, you know, do the whole travel all the way to Spain and spend time. So I've been seeing them at least once a year, but now it's exciting to go back home and just spend some time with friends and family. And even though it's not a whole lot of time, but it'll be nice though. Do
you have a lot of people coming out of the woodwork asking for tickets and that sort of thing? Like, oh, we didn't really hang out in high school. What are you doing here?
Maybe. No, I mean, not a whole lot, but it is interesting though to go back and be like, hey, we love you. I'm like, oh, cool. No, but most people, I mean, I'm from a really small town. And literally everybody knows everybody. So it's really comforting to go back and everybody just kind of, it feels good when they embrace you so much and they make you feel like home, so.
Is this a new theater or is this a place that you actually saw music when you were growing up that's sort of close to where...
The venue I'm playing in Spain? I'm actually playing 3 shows in Spain, one in my hometown, which I've played, oh my God, you just brought this memory right now. I've played in this venue one time years ago when nobody knew me back there. And it was a New Year's show. And I'm an acoustic act. I mean, like, I'm me and my guitar. And they're like, yeah, we want you to play at New Year's. I was like, okay, great. Are you sure? Yeah, we love you. This and that. I'm like, great. I'm playing this show. It's New Year's Eve. People want to get, you know, have fun.
They're looking for other activities.
Exactly. Yes. And I'm there just singing my songs. And everybody's just kind of looking at me like... Are you going to be done before 12? Or what's going to happen?
You're going to drop a beat or something soon.
That's exactly the phase of like, is it going to happen? But no, finally, I'm going back to that venue at a different time. And
people know what they're getting.
Exactly.
Elevated is coming out. They know what they're getting.
This is the Elevated show now, so.
I love that. Can you tell us a little bit about the new music that you're working on and what kind of tone it is? Is it similar or have you evolved since then?
Well, the Elevated EP that I just released, what I wanted to go, it was actually really complicated to finally find the essence of who I was as an artist, because after 7 years of being in the industry, I went through a lot of trying to find what my sound was. And at the end of the day, I just went back to the roots and be like, who am I? Well, it's pretty much quite stripped down, very like a lot of acoustic guitar because that's what I started playing, and going back to the vocals and the soulfulness that I grew up listening to in the top 40 and what it like, you know, brought me to that music. And that's what it is. It's very like acoustic, soulful pop music.
Nice. Look forward to that. Well, we have some questions in the audience. We're going to start there.
Okay. Hey.
So when you're writing original music, what kind of things inspire new songs for you?
Life. Most of the time, I mean, depending on what's going on in my life and what triggers usually start writing is when you go through something that's just obviously depressing and you need to write about it. But also, you know, a feel-good song, if you're feeling in that mood and I'm in the studio and I'm writing with a producer, then it's like, hey, I'm feeling this, you know, it's like How Not to Love You. It's just like, it just felt good. So it's really what inspires me is just whatever is going on in that day at that instant. Yeah.
Nice. Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
So since you started out on YouTube, like when you were doing your first video, like were you initially nervous of how like people were going to react to your voice, or was it like, you know, right, once you did it, then you know you just.
Well, I didn't know how people were gonna react to my videos, and that was very scary. And in the beginning, there was a lot of comments, and usually it was like, "Hey, you sing really nice. This is awesome." I also got comments that were like, "You sound like a cat being strangled," and it was like, "Oh, this is awesome." But it was actually interesting to learn how to deal with that as well, because the internet can be a really interesting place, and we all know it. But it just kind of built that tough skin, and yeah, I mean, I learned how to deal with criticism, and obviously everybody has an opinion, and once you put yourself out in the web, that you kind of have to be conscious about it, and yeah, that's kind of how I started with YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Hey, thank you for being here. What's the inspiration behind the album artwork, and what's the significance of the arrow in your name?
The arrow. This is a great question. I've never gotten this asked. Actually, I design everything myself because when I was going back to school in Spain, I did graphic design. And I did the logo. When I was working on the logo, I've gone through some logos, and this one was my favorite one, number one, because I am an artist as well, and I wanted that to show in my logo, and that's why it's not steady, and there's a lot of movement in it, and there's like, you know, big letters, small letters, and just dynamic to it, and it seems kind of graffiti-esque, but not a lot. And the arrow, what I meant with the arrow was there's a very strong significance between like me and crossing between states and Spain, and that's what I wanted to picture with it. I know it's kind of crazy, but it is true, because my entire career happened here in the States, but my roots are in Spain, so it's a constant jump from one to other, and it's really important for me to stay grounded in both places. But that's why the arrow goes from one place to the other. And the artwork as well. I had showed a photo shoot with Casey Curry, which is an incredible photographer, and we had a bunch of different looks, and this one is the one that stood out because the elevated concept for the EP, what it means is that every song in the EP, let me back up a little bit. The reason why it's called Elevated is because this felt like the next step in my career, because I went from covers to originals, and it felt like the next step. It just felt uplifting. And also, every song in the EP is either a happy song, or if it sounds like a sad song, it has a happy ending or an empowering message at the end. And that's the reason why it's called Elevated, number one. And the picture is because I am sort of in a dark place, but in a way, I'm still illuminated by these lights, and the haze just kind of makes it very dramatic. And that's why it's kind of like, feels like coming out of a dark place into a more positive scenario, so.
I like that. Well, Man of the Year tour continues on to Europe, and
Yes.
Elevated is out now. One more round of applause for Leroy
Thank you so
Sanchez,
much.
guys.